Hello everyone and welcome to this week's ICE webinar. We're delighted to be welcoming today Fiona and Miguel, who will be joining us shortly on the conference call today. Welcome, my name's Anita Howard. I'm one of the co-founders of the ICE Awards. We basically set up the ICE community, which is a global community of corporate event planners, in 2015. We basically have been talking for the last 18 months quite substantially about sustainability in events. And in November, we basically have coming together a group of people that will actually be talking about sustainability in events and research we've done. So today, one of the main things that we've come away with is that we basically want to start actually looking very carefully about how we go about this strategically. So Fiona and Miguel, I don't know if you can now turn on your cameras, that would be wonderful. Fantastic. Welcome, Miguel. Welcome, Fiona. So lovely to see you both today. And thank you so much for joining us for our first session on sustainability. And we wanted to start at the strategic level because we've all been talking about sustainability for a long time. And we want the events industry to be able to be taken very seriously. And when Fiona and Miguel, when I was talking to them, I think this is a great opportunity for the events industry to start looking very carefully how they do things in a very strategic high level area. So let me first of all welcome Miguel, who is from the UNFCCC, and also Fiona from A Positive Impact. So what I'm going to do, if I just hand over first of all to you, Miguel, just to kind of like set the scene for us. Obviously, we've all heard of the UN, but what is it all really about? And obviously your role as well, that would be wonderful.
Thanks a lot, Anita. Yes, and hello, good morning, afternoon, evening to everyone. Can you hear me okay, Anita?
Yeah, I can, absolutely.
Perfect. Great, so thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you. My name, as already said, is Miguel Naranjo, and I work with the Global Climate Action Team of the Climate Change Secretariat, or the UNFCCC Secretariat. Our role is basically to try to engage everyone who is not a national government, so private sector, academia, NGOs, civil society in general, in climate action. To give you a little bit more information and set the scene, as Anita said, I'd like to share a few slides with you. So yes, if you could help me with the slides, perfect. And we can go straight to the next one. The first thing is I wanted to refer a little bit to what the United Nations is, because I often find that people are familiar with the name United Nations, but are not really familiar with what it really is or what it's supposed to do. So let me say that the UN is supposed to be a neutral convener and a facilitator of dialogue between national governments. All right, the UN is an intergovernmental organization, meaning our main stakeholders, our main the organizations that we interact with is mainly national governments, and then we interact with others when those national governments give us the mandate to do so. Everything that we do is based on mandates from governments, because they are also the ones that that establish the UN and the ones that fund the activities of the UN. So everything that we do responds to their mandates. So when you hear the United Nations decided to do this, or the United Nations said that, actually what it means is governments working together under the umbrella of the United Nations have decided to do, or have decided to say, something else. It's not really the United Nations itself usually that is making the decisions. It's the governments who make the decisions, and we help them with the implementation of those decisions. Now, the UN was founded after World War II, basically to avoid World War III, right? So to help keep peace and to build a sustainable society. But when governments started working around ensuring long-lasting peace, they realized we are not going to achieve that without education for everyone. So an organization was established under the UN umbrella to deal with education issues, promoting and facilitating education. And then later they realized that actually we're not going to have peace and sustainable development without caring for the environment. So they found an environment organization. And it went like this. And today the UN is around 68 different organizations dealing with everything from peacekeeping operations, right, at the core of the initial mandate of the UN, to communications, from the rights of children to the rights of women, refugees, climate, environment, everything. Because in the end, everything is interrelated. And this is something that I'm sure the working in the events industry, you are pretty aware, everything is interrelated. And this is true also at global level. So when you try to solve one issue, in this case, maintaining peace, you actually need to work on all the other issues that our society has. So the UN intends to be this umbrella that helps national government try to find solutions to the different problems that we face together, and they are the bosses at the end of the day. Now, since governments are supposed to be serving their citizens, all of us, then the United Nations, it's also serving you. Right? That's an important message. Thank you. If we go to the next one, we get into more detail about the UNFCCC itself. So the CCC was, or actually refers to the Climate Change Convention, which is an agreement that is signed upon by national governments. There is a secretariat, a small organization that is in charge of coordinating all the process of implementing whatever decisions the governments reach on the topic specifically of climate. And this is the organization that I work for. We are about 350 persons based in Germany. Now, more recently, you have heard about the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is the son, let's say, of the Climate Change Convention, and it's the latest piece of intergovernmental legislation agreement to deal with climate. Maybe the most important thing to say about the Paris Agreement is that it has two main goals. One, to reduce our emission of greenhouse gases, the ones causing global warming and therefore climate change, to a level where we cause no more warming. And finally, to adapt to the changes that are already happening, right? Even if we stop emitting all greenhouse gases today, climate change will continue for many, many years into the future. You are seeing the changes already, and you will continue to see them. So we need to adapt to that. Places where it's going to rain less or more, where the temperatures are going to be higher, people are not used to it, agriculture is not used to it, etc. So the two key elements is stop our emissions of greenhouse gases so that we don't cause any more climate change. And second, to adapt to the changes that are going to happen and are happening anyway. We go to the next one. I don't want to sound alarmist because that's not the point, but I want to be very clear that we are in a very serious situation. We are at 1.1 degrees Celsius of warming already, above the levels that we had when the Industrial Revolution started. And we may reach 1.5 Celsius of warming by 2030. So in 10 years, we might be reaching the limit that the Paris Agreement establishes as ideal for global warming. Maximum ideal limit. Maximum is 2, but 2 is already considered quite dangerous. 1.5 is the ideal one. And we might be there in 10 years. That's in no time. Right? This is going to happen very quick. 10 years will go by very quickly. So we need to act today. We are actually already very late in acting on climate. That's why you hear so much talk about climate change, right? Why is it the topic of the day? because it is super urgent to act now to stop it, to control it. If we don't, what we are facing is potentially the end of our society as we know it. Again, this might sound too alarmist to some, but it's the truth. Just in case you didn't know, for example, the NATO, the Organization of the North Atlantic Treaty, NATO, they established climate change as the biggest threat to global security right now. Why is this? Because they understand that climate change is going to put so much pressure on our society, right? Lack of access to water, diminished agricultural production, forced migration, right? The famous climate migrants, that is going to cause many governments to face difficulties that go beyond their capacity to manage them, and it's going to cause social strife, social tension, potentially wars, and these will have consequences at global scale. So we are really facing a situation that threatens the very basis of the society as we know it today. That's why it is the topic of the day. That's why it is so urgent to address it. And that's also why we wanted to share a little bit with you today. And next one, please. So just to keep things in perspective, climate is of course just one element of the wider sustainability agenda. Right, there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals in the Agenda 2030, but climate is probably the key one right now because it's the most urgent one. And if we fail on addressing objective number 13, goal number 13, then we will fail in addressing all of the others. We will not have access to water, access to energy, peace, etc. We will not have them if we don't succeed on climate. Next one, please. And even this is the last slide, just to tell you, if we are going to succeed then in objective or goal 13 and the other goals, we need to do it together. No one can solve the climate challenge alone. It doesn't matter if the United States suddenly changes their position and becomes a climate leader and they reduce all their emissions or avoid all emissions, etc. If China doesn't, or if Mexico doesn't, or whoever doesn't. The atmosphere is just one, it affects everyone. Either we all change together or we are all in a very difficult situation. So it is a matter of collaboration. If we are going to reach this climate neutral status in the future, a balance between what the Earth can manage without more global warming and our emissions, then we need to work together. And that's the reason we wanted to share with you today, an idea for working together to address this from the perspective of the events industry. So for now, I leave it there, but of course, questions at any time. Back to you.
Thank you, Miguel. So while I'm sure that many of you have heard of UNFCCC, you may not have heard of Positive Impact Events. So to introduce ourselves, we're a not-for-profit that has existed since 2005 to provide education, engagement, and collaboration to create a sustainable event industry. Since 2016, we have worked with a number of United Nations bodies. If we just go back a slide, you'll see the United Nations bodies that we have been working with: UN Sustainable Development Goals, UNFCCC, UN Environment. And it really does take something to get a memorandum of understanding with these UN bodies. So there's been a lot of hard work behind this, and it's because of that that we can have Miguel in this conversation with us today. Now, as we are a not-for-profit, it means that every single penny spent with us is spent on creating resources to create a sustainable event industry. And I want to share with you a useful example of that. Over the last few months, the UK Embassy in Finland has funded us to be able to create resources for ISO 20012-1. So if you go to the Positive Impact website, there are now free resources for anyone to use to be able to implement ISO 2012-1. And it's very fitting that the UK Embassy has funded this, because ISO 2012-1 was inspired by an event held in the UK, the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2012. You can also find resources that have been supported by Monterey County and Convention Bureau and GES for addressing plastic or circular economy. They're all available for free on our website. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, okay, there are resources to take action, but why should I take action? And to explain that further, I want to introduce you to a film from Nigel Topping. And Nigel Topping is the UK's ambassador for COP in Glasgow. What that means is it's his role to talk to businesses, to talk to private sector NGOs, anyone who is not government, about what they're going to be doing to reach our climate targets and the Paris Climate Agreement. So Nigel has said we can show this video, and let's listen to him now. And the sound isn't coming through at the moment, Kitty, so I think maybe you might need to come on screen and unmute yourself.
We need to halve emissions by 2030 through exponential climate action. As we seek to rebuild our societies after the global pandemic, we can ensure that we put the world on a zero carbon pathway. Companies everywhere are stepping up their commitments to the race to net zero by 2050 at the absolute latest. These companies are great examples of leadership during a time of crisis. Many sectoral transformations are already underway, but we need a critical. We need to halve emissions by 2030 through exponential climate action. We don't have time to wait, so join us in the race to zero.
A little technical challenge there, but what Nigel was talking about was that companies everywhere are stepping up their commitment to the race to net zero. I feel quite confident to say that this probably includes the company that you're working for, and your CEO has most likely signed a commitment to report and reduce on emissions. Your company's sustainability director is probably taking action on that. And we now have some opportunities for action for you, which will give you the chance as an event professional to be involved in making a difference with your company's commitments. In other words, this is your opportunity to be a hero in your own company on the pathway to zero. This is really why we're here today, and the 3 opportunities I'm going to present to you will give you actions that you can take to make things happen. The first opportunity I want to present to you is to have a framework created with UNFCCC. Now, this is a very big initiative. Fashion is a very good example of frameworks that have been created previously, and this takes a lot of commitment and a lot of significant budget from a sector to work with UNFCCC. Now, the framework means there would be very clear targets and indicators for carbon emission levels that would be met by the sector. So in other words, key parties from the sector would come together with UNFCCC and they would decide on what their targets could be and how they could work to address them. The reason the event sector is not involved in Nigel Topping's work with the Race to Zero is because we have not set any measurements. We are not aiming for any targets yet, and now is really the time for us to be doing that. So the first opportunity for action is to gather together, raise significant funds, and work with UNFCCC on creating a framework. Now, imagine at COP 26, this framework could be presented, and you could have the our Prime Minister standing up and saying the event sector was badly hit due to COVID-19, and we have upskilled that community, and we have created a framework with UNFCCC, and we are now able to demonstrate that the UK event sector is best in the world and has been built back better. And it would also be an opportunity at COP for other countries and their event sectors to get behind this framework. Now, if we don't have the funds to create the framework, what we could create is a pathway document. Again, this is with UNFCCC, and it is one step towards that significant framework. Again, the same thing could happen at COP. We could announce that a pathway document has been created, and we could ask other governments and people from the event sector in other countries to get behind and support that. So how would a pathway be created? Well, UNFCCC would facilitate a conversation with a number of UK event leaders, and we would try and see what targets could be and what actions could be taken to reach that pathway. Budget would be required for this of about £40,000. Budget for collaboration with UNFCCC is required. Now, as a community, if we could gather that investment, that would leave UNFCCC able to create a pathway, and it would leave us as a UK event sector with the ability to share this document on a global stage like COP. It would also leave you able to be talking to your CEO about your company's commitments to the Race to Zero and how events can be a part of that race. Now, the final opportunity I'm going to give you is one which is much more personal to you. We have created an education and engagement opportunity for you. Priced at £350 a year, the Engage product will give you both education and an opportunity to engage with your peers. Let me tell you about the engagement opportunity first. You'll be able to join a monthly conversation. We call these conversations salons. These are only going to be with senior corporate event planners. Since March, we have been delivering this with North American event planners, including T-Mobile, Interface, Estee Lauder, and others. Now, the aim of these salons is so that you can be informed, and we also invite UN partners in to have conversations with us. For example, recently we have had UNICEF UK in a conversation with us about their guidelines for planning an event with a consideration of human and child rights. And the people within the salon were able to give their feedback directly to UNICEF UK. So far, from our North American salon, we have had one of our members be taken back from furlough because she spoke directly to her CEO about how she could support him on the sustainability journey. And we have had another member of our salon have an increased job profile within the business and be nominated for an award. In other words, we have tested this approach and we know it works. The second part of the product is an education piece, which you receive as soon as you sign up. And this content will help you be very clear on the strategic business case for implementing the Sustainable Development Goals within your event. With this content, you will hear from experts external from the event industry, and you'll learn what each of the Sustainable Development Goals could mean for the event industry. Now, your collaboration with ICE means that you do have a unique benefit, and we are providing you with a 20% discount. So rather than paying £350, you'll be paying £280 per year. Now, we know that this is a very useful approach based on the feedback and the results we've seen so far, and we really hope this will help you increase the profile of your job role. I want to wrap up by saying, who is responsible for taking action here, and why should we take this action? Well, why not you? You could definitely be the person that is responsible. I want to give you a little bit of context and let you know that Miguel and I have been speaking to the global event industry for over 2 years now about frameworks and pathways and funding and action to be taken. And the response is always very slow and usually comes down to, this isn't my responsibility. The reality is it's no one's responsibility within the global event industry. And it's for that reason that our sector is not being recognized on initiatives like the Race to Zero or within global government conversations. And together We can change that. I spent 50% of my time within the event world and 50% of my time within the UN world. And it really pains me sometimes that the event sector is missing from the strategic conversations that it could be involved in. I know that right now is a crazy time to be asking you all to gather budget to make this happen, but it's also an incredibly unique opportunity for us to position our sector on the world stage when COP comes to the UK next year. So at this point, I want to hand back to Miguel so that he can tell us a few words on how the fashion sector's approach has been successful for them. And then we're going to go straight into questions.
Thanks, Fiona. So maybe one thing just before I jump into fashion is just to remind everyone or to mention to everyone something I forgot in the introduction, which is, as I said, climate is a threat to the continued existence of our society as we know it today. That means it's also a threat to your business. It's a threat to everything that we do. So the reason to get engaged in climate action, in sustainability in general, is not just because it's the right thing to do. It's not just for the future generations, for the polar bears and the penguins, etc. It's also about the bottom line, your bottom line. It's about your livelihoods as well. So the financial considerations are also relevant when talking about climate, right? This is about the economy as well. So if the other reasons are, let's say, not conclusive for you, the bottom line of your business is also on the line. So just to keep that in mind. Now, in terms of fashion, fashion, yes, is one of the two sectors that we have engaged with so far. The way it works is the UNFCCC Secretariat, we act as a neutral convener. Again, the first slide that I spoke about, the UN role. We act as a safe space where the different players of the industry, in this case fashion, can get together and discuss how to implement significant, or how do you say, not significant, but effective, meaningful action in the business. What used to happen is you would go and talk to the suppliers and they would say, oh yes, we would love to be sustainable or act on climate, but the brands are not asking for it. So we would talk to the brands and they would say, oh no, of course we want to have sustainability and be very climate positive, etc. But the suppliers cannot provide what we need. So let's get all together, sit down in a table, in a neutral space, safe space, where competitors and suppliers and buyers can safely speak and see what we can actually do together, or actually what they can do together to address the climate challenge. The Secretariat acts as, again, the convener, the facilitator of the conversation. We provide advice as necessary. But the whole plan of the whole identification of options that can be implemented and how to implement it, and the development of the whole plan is done by them. Is led and done by them. So it's not the Climate Change Secretariat telling you, you need to do this, you need to do that. If you don't do it, these are the consequences. No, it's about a cooperative, voluntary initiative where the participants are the ones making the decisions and then implementing what they agreed to.
Great, thanks Miguel for giving us a summary there. I'm just conscious that time is running out. Sure. We only have 2 minutes left. So if I hand back to Anita.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Miguel, I know that's so interesting. When we talked originally about how the fashion industry got together and got recognized, and the bringing together of two parties was so important. I've got a question here just from Jen. She's actually asked, how long does it actually take to pull together a framework like you did for the fashion industry? Have we got enough time, before we get to COP?
Mm-hmm. It's relatively straightforward if you have enough representatives from the industry. If you have a few committed representatives, it's quite easy to get the first steps going, the first part of it. The actual implementation of the solutions might take much longer, right? But
Yeah.
the defining what the solutions may be is quite fast, yes. And
Yeah.
for COP26, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And if I can just add to that, and like I said, for the last 2 years, Miguel and I have been speaking to all the industry associations. We've reached out to the Business Visits and Events Partnership. We have got a lot of conversations going on around this. What we are missing is the corporate event planner's voice. And we're also missing the funding for being able to do it, because the associations have not provided that.
Yeah, okay. Because I think this is quite, one of the things as the ICE community, because obviously it's quite a major issue for most corporations that they're always addressing sustainability. I think we need to explore this more, and basically how we work to get the push going upwards, because I think one of the key areas for us all is that basically we have got a situation where the sustainability directors haven't even got to the events teams, and it'd be great if the event teams can be pushing upwards to actually change the role of sustainability. Can I also just quickly ask, I've got one a question here, is can you, the ISO 2012, I always get mixed up with the numbers, apologies, is that something you provide as an organisation, Fiona? Yes.
No, so positive impact events, all those materials are free on the website.
Yes.
But I don't provide any certification. Positive impact events does not provide any certification, no.
Right.
So that would be external certification partners that would provide that.
Perfect, wonderful. Because I know one of the keys that we're trying to do is to get everyone measuring the same things. And there's some things that have actually come out of the ICE research recently that I think will be quite compelling as we develop this. So look, is there any more questions from anyone? I've got a couple here, bear with me a moment. I've got are there any comparable international examples or where a country's event sector has led the way in sustainability?
So, like I said, I spend half of my time in the UN world and half my time in the event world. And I can't say there's any country that has led no. Globally, we're missing a trick. We're an industry right now which is disappearing. I know from the salons and from the examples I gave earlier that if we position ourselves as the ones that understand how inclusion and participation happens, if we position ourselves as understanding what the Sustainable Development Goals are, we have a whole new future ahead of us as an industry. Our jobs will be safe and will be recognised in a different way. But getting that message across has been something I haven't been able to achieve. And like I say, Miguel and I have been in conversations with the industry for over 2 years. So I wonder if maybe the corporate take on it may be the missing piece, because we did a white paper a few months ago for corporates to take to their CEOs. And we had some great responses from that, because they literally sat down around the same table and the CEOs and heads of sustainability were saying, oh, we were thinking of just cutting our events to save the carbon footprint. But what you've told us about here is we could use our events for gender equality, for health and well-being. And it's about moving away from just the logistics of how we deliver an event to the more strategic piece of what the industry is all about. And that will save our jobs.
The question from Lisa here is, how do we make sustainability and climate change a priority when businesses are currently focused on recovery? Or should we say survival during COVID? It's a very difficult balancing act, isn't it, of how they actually achieve that.
And Miguel, you probably want to say more on this, but this week I've been on the UN Global Compact Business Forum, thousands of businesses, and they're all committing to building back better. So these are businesses, global businesses, everyone from Unilever to Adidas, saying we commit to a future where sustainability is at our core. Miguel, do you want to add?
So just to say that maybe small and medium enterprises may be having a particularly difficult time and really need to focus on the recovery or survival at this point. That's completely understood. But for the others, especially the big ones, as Fiona was saying, this is just a wake-up call. This is a demonstration that shocks like the COVID can happen. And the one that climate change is bringing about is much bigger than COVID. So this is an opportunity to actually look at the way we see business differently again.
Yes.
So
yeah.
it's not about focusing on sustainability while we try to survive. It's about understanding that survival is about sustainability. The two are one, actually. So if we are not looking at sustainability already as part of the way we do business, we're going the wrong direction. We are going to be facing a much worse situation than with COVID very soon. So it's about the survival that we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love this building back better, which is just such a key opportunity. Well, look, now I know we always do like half an hour to, so we've been very good, we have, because it's such a massive topic. Obviously, we'll be posting the recording online, so please share it with your community. If you have any questions for any of us, please let us know and we'll pass those along. And let's, I think, work together and start building this back better together and obviously get a framework underway. So thank you, Fiona and Miguel. Really lovely meeting you both, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.